All right, welcome everyone to today's Optanix Platform demo. Before we get started, just a brief intro. Your hosts for today's sessions are going to be Paul Taylor. He is our VP of Customer Success and Portfolio Development, and also Rob Freeborn, our Vice President of Managed Solutions. And before we begin, just so you know, a few housekeeping items. Attendees are all on mute, so we cannot hear you. If you have any issues, you obviously can't hear me right now with your audio, but you can send us a message in the chat questions box, or you can submit questions in the questions box as well for our Q&A session at the end of the demo. And also, for anything else you may need, if you want a recording of the event, the slideware, any deeper questions, or a deep dive demo, you can email me right at robert.waters@optanix.com for a little more info. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Taylor.
Hello, and thank you for your time today. As businesses continue to digitize, they're finding new ways to allow their partners, their customers, and their people to collaborate with each other, work with each other. And in this digital enterprise, this flexibility brings complexity. And if organizations are unable to manage this complexity, the user's experience degrades to such a point as they substitute another service. So IT management has never been more important in the digital enterprise, ever. With that flexibility and in a digital enterprise, organizations are challenged to managing multiple services with multiple data sources, handling multiple tools, which create this tidal wave of events. That tidal wave inhibits the IT organization from understanding what the problem is, how to fix it, what the impact is on the serviceability. And at Optanix, we spend a lot of time and effort finding the solution to this problem. And our solution is our method, our technology platform. So we're able to ingest an enormous amount of data and analyze that data in such a way we can build meaningful insights and use automation to act on those insights to build stability into the platform. So this slide is an example of one of our customers. This customer generates every quarter 650 million events. And we ingest those events into our platform. We're able to take a snapshot of the state of the customer's infrastructure and look for things that have changed. So we can take those events, compare it to the snapshot, and look for deltas between the two. And then use correlation to work out the consequence of those changes. And most platforms really stop here. They stop at the correlation layer. So if we stop to the correlation layer, this customer would have in excess of 3,000 tickets a quarter. And with that volume of tickets, it's very difficult for the IT organization and their technology partners to actually build serviceability and robustness into their customer's experience. What we then do is our technology goes a step further than that. We can then take that correlation and we can automate basic troubleshooting. So for example, if a switch goes down, and Rob will show this in a minute, we're able to know the dependencies between that switch and the other devices reporting alerts. So we can use that dependency with the correlation to actually determine where the root cause is very, very fast. And that allows us with this customer to take those 650 million events a quarter and condense them into just under 500 actionable tickets. Just briefly talk about how we consume the service. So we sell the service in two modes. You can purchase it as a platform as a service. So the platform, we deploy the software, maintenance, and really important here is that we deploy the profiles as part of the service. So when you buy the service, you get the profile for all the devices that we've got. And as we learn from other customers, problems from other customers, we can take those learnings, those automations and correlations, and we share them across all our customer instances. So in our customers, only one customer sees the problem the first time, because by the time we distribute all the profiles, we're able to predict those problems occurring in other customers. You can also buy it as a managed service. So the managed service is our platform plus our people to manage the infrastructure on your behalf, either white labeled through a partner or direct as an end user. And now for the demo.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And Rob, I will now turn it over to you for the demo portion.
All right, perfect. So what we're looking at is a combination of live and lab material environment within the Optanix interface. As you can see, it's delivered via a web UI. So one of the key concepts about this is even though it's delivered as a service, it's delivered inside your network. So all the telemetry we gather stays on your network. So as you're looking at things like GDPR in Europe or other kinds of reporting and regulations here in the United States and across the world, it's tremendously helpful to understand that none of your telemetry, none of the information we gather is going to be leaving your environment. So I'm going to walk through the core components of the Optanix environment. So I'm going to use a couple relatively simple examples to show you what I'm talking about. So at its base, Optanix is an element management device. So we understand the health and welfare of both physical and logical entities, elements, configured items, whatever you want to, however you want to describe them. And we do that by either asking questions, by polling, or we can also receive real-time information via traps. And we can do that across the entire stack. I talk about it as being from the service to the spindle, meaning the service in an application, in a virtualized environment, on a compute platform, running across a physical or virtual network or a software-defined network, all the way down to the storage area network and the spindle on that individual SAN. So when you're looking across that entire network, that thread that we've just described, we're looking at multiple technologies from multiple vendors, and if there's anything that happens to that, we're going to intelligently alert to the right person. So we're looking at, in this case, a CRS-1 router, a Cisco Big Iron router, carrier class equipment, and I'm going to highlight a couple things that are key to this. So here, is how we understand parent-child relationships. So we could see that this happens to be a router in Syracuse attached to a router in Amsterdam, and then these are all the things that depend on this Amsterdam router to run. I also have a snapshot of the things that we're monitoring on this router. So this could be physical, this can be environmental, this can be the memory, so on and so forth. And across the top, we see a host of different information that we have available. Asset CMDB type information, case information, so reverse correlation, a knowledge base of everything that's ever happened. Here's the most recent active ticket. We do some backup depending on the device type. We don't happen to have any on this one. I can go out and actually the moment I click this discovery tab, right now I'm going out and discovering all of this device's neighbors. Performance graphing, so we have the ability to trend information over time. Now we have a number of different ways of looking at reports within our environment. This is one. We also have capacity planning reporting as well, where we can look at trending over time and forecast it going forward. It really depends on how you want to consume it. And of course, we can threshold on that to say if you exceed certain parameters, we're going to alarm on it. But what I wanted to do was, I do not have access to this page. So what I want to do is I want to show you some more information about how this environment works and what we do within it. So we've got the entity management view, and then the next stage up would be the operational management view. How do these devices work together? So I've got a couple different things that I could look at. So I could say, for example, look at the map dashboard. Everybody loves to see a map. Everybody wants to see how all these devices are physically and logically connected together. So this is actually the environment that we're monitoring right now. So you can see it's a global network, and all I would have to do is go in here and click on one of these, and I'd be able to tell what's going on in this environment. I'll take a moment for it to render over here. Here you go. Everything's looking good in London. I can come over here to Syracuse to our NOC. It looks like there was something going on. Yep, the publisher was having an issue. So it gives a great overhead view of all the elements and how they're working together. We can also give you a snapshot of that operational management view where I could say, well, here's how these devices are operating. It looks like all the cases are at a meeting status. Here's how things have trended over time. By far and away, the vast majority of the devices are being auto-detected by the platform. Things like that are going on right now. Then we go up to the service management layer. So element, what's the health and welfare of a discrete device? Operational management layer, how are those devices working together? And then the service management layer is how are we actually reporting on issues that are happening in this environment. And as you can see right here, whenever we generate a trouble ticket, we have a common naming convention: name, method, instance. So the power of that is tremendous, and if you wanted to do a deep dive with us, I could get into how this leads to some really powerful analytics on the back end, the big data that we run to improve the platform. But just from at first blush, when this comes across in that engineer's email, they're going to know exactly what's happening. They're going to see in that snapshot exactly what the issue is. And by the way, we're doing that proactively before someone can tell us about 95% of the time across the globe. So we're far exceeding what a typical enterprise's environment is from a proactive perspective. But just as importantly is to then understand how the platform automatically assists in trouble resolution. So for example, you could see right here when the device went unreachable, San Francisco retail WAN routers unreachable, please investigate. Looks like it came back up. As you can see, the update was done by the platform. It went out and checked that both primary and 4G connectivity was set, and then it went out here and it did it went out and checked again, and it opened up the trouble ticket again because the incident reoccurred, and it's telling us it's running on 4G backup. And then it went back out and checked the primary and backup paths to understand exactly what's happening. Extremely powerful from an incident resolution process. You can see why, on average, we're proactive 95% of the time, and why we're able to enable a 91% first-time fix rate. It's because we're pumping this kind of information to the first level and second level responders immediately. And by the way, globally across all the environments we're monitoring and managing, we're doing this kind of analysis, this kind of validation and verification in roughly 32 seconds. So entity management, element management, the health and welfare of a discrete device like this environment. And that's what's interesting is this is actually a logical element. As you can see, we've combined a number of WAN routers, both their hardware connection and their 4G backup, and we've collapsed that into a logical element that we're monitoring. And then we're doing this, we're pushing out tickets like this from a service management perspective. Finally, we've got the business management reporting layer, where we have a whole host of different kinds of reports that we bring along with the platform. We've got all kinds of different dashboards like I was showing you earlier, and we have the ability to then also, if our reporting doesn't meet your needs, do either custom reports or offboard this information to a data warehouse, and you can bring in other information to correlate that against and run reports to your heart's content. So really it is a full stack monitoring platform from the element, operations, service, and business management layer that's delivering you proactive support across the entire service stack, from the application all the way down to the storage environment. And all the lessons we've learned over being in this business for so many years is being delivered to you with our quarterly updates, and it's all done inside your network. And I think that's exactly about where Robert wanted me to kind of stop this portion of the webinar.
You got it. That was perfect. Thank you, Rob. So you can go ahead and leave your screen up there because we got a few
Sure.
questions, and you never know when we
Excellent.
need it. So first question comes in. It's how large can the platform scale in terms of the total number of systems it can monitor?
Great question. So I'm going to answer that a couple different ways. One, and we didn't really get into an architecture discussion, but whomever asked that, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you about our architecture. And in short, our architecture is very modular, where at extreme levels, we are still monitoring with one logical instance the entire environment. So what do I mean by the largest levels? Our largest environments are far into the many tens of thousands of routers and switches, thousands and thousands of applications that are running in virtualized environments on top of different kinds of compute platforms, and hundreds of thousands of endpoints. So largest case I can think of right now is about 300,000 phones with 50, 60,000 routers and switches and gateways underlying it, thousands of applications underlying that, and then the data centers that are delivering those services and other services globally. And it runs great on a day-by-day basis, so we have yet to find an ultimate top end, but it deserves a deeper conversation around how the architecture enables it. To say it's infinitely scalable would be kind of a misuse of the word, but we have not found a top end.
Perfect. Okay, moving on. Next question is, how do you onboard new technologies to monitor and manage?
Oh, great question. So we've got the simple answer is we've got what we call a rapid innovation team. So that team's job on a day-by-day basis is to be responding to customer inquiries. So unlike a typical shrink-wrap software vendor where they just hand you the CD and say, you need to now go learn not only the technology, right, the router, switch, application, compute, storage, whatever it is, you have to be an expert at that. You then also have to be an expert at how my management platform works, and then you have to be an expert at integrating those two. We take 2/3 of that responsibility away from you. We want you to be an expert at the technology. We are going to deliver the service here, so the rapid innovation team is constantly doing those updates on their own as they see new technologies come to market. I know, for example, Paul is working on a number of SDN and ACI-related initiatives across the globe with some of our partners. And then when someone brings something from a point solution to us, we then bring our rapid innovation team to market with them. And to kind of give you a time scale, typically about 60 days, we'll have a battle-tested, ready-to-go environment to work with. So that means bringing in, we'll be working with the end user, with the manufacturer, whoever it is. But the real power is that you don't need to rely on being an expert at 2/3 of that. You just need to be an expert at that end technology that you've gone out and purchased.
Excellent, thank you, Rob. And we actually do have one more. How does your platform work in an ITIL environment?
Oh, yeah, great question. So, and I'm going to focus particularly on incident, problem, and change management. So from an incident perspective, it's pretty straightforward, right? We have the ability to flag these incidents and highlight how they are, highlight them basically in real time as they are occurring. So an incident perspective, about 95% proactive. Then we've got a number of different ways that we can look at it from a problem management perspective. This is one of my favorite views. A lot of my coworkers like to call it the ugly graph, but we're actually visualizing the exact incident happening over and over again over time. So briefly, vertical is the number of manual and automated updates over time the last 4 weeks for all the tests that we're running in this environment. So you could see any one of these, whatever that is, kind of like a turquoise green, a purple, a pink, yellow, this kind of sea foamy green, whatever that is. These are all incidents that are recurring over and over again, the exact same thing. And what I mean by the exact same thing is if we come back out here and we look at this name method instance, this Miami retail router WAN if this interface failing, that exact thing happened over and over again. So that's one view of it. Then we also have another way to look at problem management from a macro perspective, where we are rolling up all the most common happening events and trap messages, and then by device, you can now come in here and say, oh, this wireless LAN controller contributes, it's the most troubling device in my network right now, whatever troubling means, right? It's whatever is ever generating the most noise by syslog, trap, hold events, incident updates, kind of combining those all together. When we look at it, we could say if we eliminate this device from having problems, we eliminate the biggest problem in our network. And then from a change management perspective, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but we have the ability to open up standard service and elective service requests, which lets us put devices into an outage state and so on and so forth. And then our ability to drive that root cause puts devices in an outage mode, so that device, nor anything that has a downstream relationship to it, none of those things are going to alarm during that time period. And then in addition, we're going to go back out and retest at the end of the period to make sure that everything comes back up correctly. And if it hasn't, we're going to generate a trouble ticket, so you know immediately that you missed your change window, and then you can go in here and make a note of it. So it's very, very powerful, and it really helps enable our customers and ourselves when we deliver managed services to keep very tight hold of an incident, problem, and change. We didn't even get into the escalation engine and how that works and so on, but I hope that answered the question.
I think it did, and that looks like it will do it for our questions. So Rob and Paul, thank you very much for the demo and the Q&A and all that great info, and thank you to our attendees for joining us, and that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.